buying areas like Toronto, in good shape, at a reasonable price, you could sell. And you could sell them fresh. There was also, I realized there was a market for frozen, because when you go into a big store like a Metro or whatever, you'll see some berries, what they call them, European finest, which is these different packets of frozen berries. Not many of them are wild. I think Loblaws was the only one that sold a little yellow tub full of wild blueberries. So there was a market there also for frozen. There's a market for dried because different people are interested in dried berries. And I'm interested in food, like the flavor of food. I mean, I know they're full of antioxidants, and I know they've got this and enzyme that, and omegas and stuff. That's never been my interest. I just like to eat the stuff. So, but what has been happening over the last, I'd say, 5, 6, 7 years is a real increase in interest around what's in the foods people are eating. So people want blueberries, they want Saskatoons, so we sell dried Saskatoons. They want these things as much often for their food values as for anything else. And this is the whole move to, I think, foods that are, I don't know, exotic. The fusion that used to go on in the restaurants and stuff has sort of given way in the last 5 years in particular. Chefs, other people, food writers, they're interested in what is local. They're interested in, I mean, at first they started saying, okay, what's local, you know, and realizing that they're looking around at the same old agricultural products as they had forever. You know, they're sort of, okay, maybe we won't use that. Maybe, okay, so what's regional? And then they start to think, oh, we can get this from there, and, you know, some goat's cheese from Stratford. And they're trying to put together something that's a regional menu, right? Then they realize, oh, well, maybe we better look at Canadian, right? And then they get a much bigger view of all the things that they can start putting together in a menu. This is a big change, and it's not a change that's going to sort of fall away. I think it's a change that's going to increase a lot. I can remember when I started off, I went to one restaurant and brought out different things, and Big Apple was one of them. And the chef's trying these different things, and you know, gave me the price list. And I this is a restaurant that had a great reputation. You know, you had to line up outside to get in for a brunch, and they had mango this on the menu and all these different things, Chilean this, and I said, so what do you think? What do you think of the Big Apple? I called it Clubberry. And the chef said, no. I said, your stuff's too exotic for me. Right? I mean, if you can believe it. And you could have taken any one of 100 or 200 different foods that grow here and taken it to a chef like that, and they would have considered the stuff too exotic. Well, now the rush is in the other direction. They're looking for things to buy. They're looking for foods that they can make unique dishes with. The same thing has happened with mushrooms. I think it's safe to say that maybe 20 or 25 years ago, fungophobia would be the big word to use with anybody to deal with mushrooms. I mean, the button mushrooms came in, and if you look carefully in a supermarket, you could find a few of them. Then all of a sudden another one turned up, and then a portobello mushroom, and then an oyster mushroom, and then shiitake mushrooms. So you're getting these mushrooms turning up in the supermarkets. But these are all grown mushrooms. Again, I don't know when it started. Over the last 10 years, there's been a huge increase in wild mushrooms. And we often can't get enough of almost any variety. Even puffballs. I don't know if you have them over here. I'm sure you probably do. I sold one in a restaurant one time. I couldn't get it in my biggest cooler. I sold the one mushroom for $50 to a restaurant. It's just morels, morels, chanterelles, like there's the standard ones, but also you can introduce, I mean, there's many mushrooms here that can be harvested. People want them fresh, they want them dry. I think by now probably 40% of our business is dried and fresh mushrooms. So one of the things I think that when you decide to start to market your stuff is you have to figure out which markets you want to go after. I've spent, I guess, the last 12, 14 years testing markets, basically. R&D, just what do you think? Putting it out there, trying to figure out the bureaucracy that works in a particular area to see if it's possible, whether you can make any money at it. A lot of the problems in dealing with a lot of wild foods is even if you have 100 different things you're going to sell in a year, there's probably 10 of them you're not going to get because of the conditions that year, whether it was drought or whether it was floods or whatever. So you have to be sure of how much you can get of something for some of the markets you go for. And you have to figure out, you know, how many eggs you're going to have in one basket. Do you want to try one thing in 5 different markets or 10 markets, or you want to try 10 things in one market or a couple? What I found out from our wild foods, and it's you know, cloudberries, it's partridge berry, and a dozen other fruits, and a dozen mushrooms, nuts, birch syrup, flower syrups, all these different things. That there are places for these. In Toronto, the last 10 years, there's also been this huge growth of specialty food stores. There was always one or two around that liked to carry things, and there was places like St. Lawrence Market where it's sort of an all-week, used to be a farmer's market, but it's an all-week market with different purveyors in there. And then on the other side of the street on Saturdays, to bring some farmers in. But it always had some specialty foods there, and there was one or two shops in the city that would have interesting stuff. You know, like, I don't know, walnut oil, you know, balsamic vinegar, $150 a bottle. These specialty stores have started to increase now in numbers. So where you might have had 2 or 3, there's now probably 20 or 30 of ones that are sort of like a supermarket, only a bit smaller, but a bigger variety of a lot of expensive foods. There's also been this real increase in the number of cheese shops. They often sell other things like good bread and stuff like that, but it is quite an interesting phenomenon to see people moving away from the malls, moving away from the big grocery stores, and starting to go to these small specialty food stores. And the other thing that started to increase is the number of bakeries, the number of butchers. There's even a small chain of butchers that opened in Toronto. And these places are places that want other unique Canadian products to go with their stuff. And they actually will, you know, try to seek you out to find out if you've got stuff that's going to go well, like, you know, maybe cedar jelly with the lamb, or maybe other products. So the specialty food stores are there, they're growing in number, and they're increasing their demand for these kinds of foods. Chefs at restaurants and hotels and places like that, they are also creating more and more demand for stuff that it's past the stage where they're just going to have it on their special menu. They're getting to the stage now where they want it in their printed menu, the one that lasts for 3 or 4 months. And they're really looking to make sure they can get the supply. So, for instance, when they, you know, put oxeye daisy capers on the menu, and Cheryl and I are pulling what's left of our hair out, trying to figure out how to get them. And then they're so happy with these oxeye daisy capers, they put it on the printed menu. And then we find out, oh, there's only 2 cases left, right? They go nuts. I mean, you know, so you don't want to not have something that they really want. You want to tell them very clearly, don't print it on a menu. This is a limited thing. And it doesn't matter how many times you tell them that stuff is limited. They don't always hear. Now, the flip side of that is they're not limited. You know, they cover the country. Oxeye daisy flowers are everywhere. There's enough plants probably in this country to feed the country. But there aren't the harvesters. There's very little